Hi again. So in this lesson, we'll learn more about our rendering in itself and learning a couple of the settings you should have in your mind when you're rendering and some of the render passes that are quite important. So, okay, I've opened up our V-Ray properties, and the first thing I do is, of course, set your render engine. This is, once again, it's a basic walkthrough because I really always try and get into my render into my post-production as soon as possible. So I really try and make a quick render and knock something out so I can really try and build it up a little more in Photoshop. So we're going to be rendering through the frame buffer. So once you get into video, you probably wouldn't want to use a frame buffer. It just starts, if you start to use a lot of passes, it just eats up a lot of memory. So you probably won't even use that, and you'll just switch it off in the V-Ray properties. So let's just quickly run through the frame buffer. I'll just leave it. Global switches, I wouldn't touch anything on this one. Let me just run through with you. Bear with me. There we go. No, I would not touch. Okay, the image sampler and the anti-aliasing. I tend to use Michel Nutravali because I think it kind of gives you a sharp but not over-sharpened image. I know some people do use Cut More ROM. I just find it's too sharp and it gets a bit annoying once you start to get those sharp edges. It just doesn't look natural. Also, some people tend to use area. Area is good, but the selections are really bad, and I don't think it works really well with your mats, but it's a question of preferences. Your DMC sampler, then again, I just want small settings, so I'm going up to 6. I know a lot of people tend to have higher settings, but once again, I do mostly in post. So you don't want to touch environment, color mapping you've already set. And I think that's about all on this one. So you want to use your indirect illumination. So you want your GI on. You can set it to refractive. I mean, it's not a big deal. I tend to use for primary balances, radiance map, and light cache. I think it works quite well. It's quite quick. Noise is pretty much reduced. And I'll go into my radiance map, and I'll probably keep that around low for this one. If I'm working at really high res and outside, low generally works the majority of times. And as I'm kind of using some very low settings in this, and the higher the res, I'll probably go lower. And as I'm far away, I don't think that will really matter that much. And as it's at night, I'll just for the time being keep it at low. For light cache, I will keep it around probably for production around 1,000 subdivisions. The sample size seems great. I'll use light cache for glossy rays. You should use the number of threads you have in this one. So if you have let me see if I get this right, quad core hyper-threaded, you'll put 8. If you have more, if you have dual processors, you'll have to take that into account and adapt for the amount of processors and threads. So we'll keep that like that. Then again, I'm not going to mess around with the noise threshold. Let's keep it as it is. I will, though, however, reduce the buckets so we don't have as much memory consumption. Put the dynamic memory limit to around 8,000. And I think we're pretty much done on this one. Yep, I tend to put on low thread priority just because I like to be doing things when I'm rendering on the computer. And it really helps me to navigate around on the internet or something without being too slow. Okay, let's get into our render elements. So let's add in those render elements. So we'll have multi-mats, which I will probably talk about now. So, okay, let's talk about these multi-mats. Multi-mats, what are they? Well, multi-mats, I don't know if you've ever seen those green, red, and blue renders that you think, wow, that looks very strange. Actually, give me 1 second, I'll just pop that up. So I found a multi-mat, and I'll just show you very quickly this multi-mat. As you can see, we have our blue, green, and red. And multi-mats are nothing less, nothing more than selections. And it just makes it so much easier to select your mat or select your objects. And as you can see, they're quite sharp in comparison to render ID or any other type of mat that you might get from Max. And I'll just quickly show you how you can set that up. So you want your multi-mat, your G buffer on, and you want to put it on. Also leave that untouched. And so what you've done is you've created your multi-mats for your G buffer ID 0, 2, and 3. Then again, there are various ways of doing this. I just tend to do it this way, and everyone has their own preference. I'll just change the name of that to 0, 1. So I will click on the object that I want, and let me just verify that it's clicked. Yeah. And I will just, let me hide that background so we don't get confused. Okay, and I will right click and I'll go into object properties and I will give that a G buffer object ID of 1. I will go into the next one. I tend to hide them. I will go into the next one and I will go into that object. So I'm kind of defining in my head here which objects I think I need specific mats for. And so I'm doing every single object because I've modeled every single object independently and they're kind of the objects that I need. But if I wanted to group a series of them like the floor or the lighting, I could just select them. I'll just show you very briefly. So actually I'll just select that one and I will select these ones. Let me see another one that I need. Okay, that one. They don't intersect and they'll just give me less mats. So I'll right click object properties and I will go into 3. Is it 3? No, 2. Okay, I'll go into 2. I will hide that. Actually, sorry, 3 because I've already hidden. So let's go into object properties, 3. Okay, I will hide. Be sure to be making notes on this. The self-illumination ones I probably won't need because I'll just render out a pass for that. And I'll go back and I'll make that a pass. And I'll just self-illumination. Here we go. So, yeah, we don't need that. But glass is very important. So, I mean, I could select these through the material browser, but there's so few that I'm just selecting individually. So object properties 4, I'll hide that, and I will add another multi-mat because we've gone up to 4, and I'll call that 0, 2, and just progressively to 4, 5, and 6. Switch those on, and I will just progress through that and I'll do the rest of that, and I will see you in the next lesson to talk more about the material elements and material passes and render passes that might be of some use to us in this lesson. All right, I will see you in the next lesson.